Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and today we have got a very special interview looking at Bryan Mbeumo, and we are talking to Sam Tabuteau from the Hounslow Herald, sports editor over there, and Brentford FC, bit of an expert, let's be honest. You've been covering them home and away for a number of years. Sam, it's great to get you on and get some inside knowledge on Bryan Mbeumo, what he is as a player and what United can expect if we do manage to sign him. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's obviously, it's one of those clubs, Brentford, where I think most people are sort of slightly charmed by them. I think most people kind of like this story. No one's really got a huge kind of rivalry with them, certainly not in the north of England anyway, where I live and where United are based. It seems like we can sort of all go, aren't Brentford doing a good job? Thomas Frank did a good job. And I wonder how much of that is sort of going into this deal, where I think everyone feels as though, yes, it's taken a bit of time, but I think we all kind of go, you know what, they're selling their best player here, or certainly one of them. I kind of get it all. I do sort of get it. Let's just get into Bryan Mbeumo. Let's just start as we need to go on. My first question is, for someone you've been, like I said, you've been watching them home and away, you've been in the press conferences, you're at the training ground, you see these guys close up, week in, week out. How good is Bryan Mbeumo?
I mean, he's absolutely brilliant. He's taken it on this season. I think obviously he's now the second Brentford player to hit 20 goals. In a Premier League season. But yeah, he's absolutely brilliant, and he's the main guy in what is a really, really exciting Brentford team, you know. They were sort of the league's great entertainers, and Mbeumo was the head of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, like I said, it's good seeing. It's the sort of signing that I think as United fans, it feels sensible. It doesn't feel like a huge risk. He's been there for a number of years. He's not come to Brentford and been there 6 months and done all right, and United have spent big money. It feels like a pretty safe bet. But talk to me about him as a player. What type of player is he? I know we'll have all seen him, and we've certainly seen him when he played United, and we've all seen Brentford games. But as someone that watches him all the time, what can United expect from him on the pitch as a player for, if he was to sign in the next week or two?
So he's direct. He's incredibly technically gifted. I mean, his first touch is superb. And he's one of those players, he's probably taken that on this season, but he takes charge of games. He's the player that Brentford look to if they're looking for a goal. Norgard, he'll hit the ball out to Mbeumo at any opportunity, and he's perfected this little move where he's a left-footed right winger. He likes to come in and then drill the ball near post, and he's managed to catch out a lot of keepers this season with that sort of move. So I think one thing is he's an excellent goal scorer, but he backs that up with his sort of all-round technical game.
Yeah, I think it's something that United are missing, like especially at the start of last season. You go through the players in the team. I know Sancho had been kind of exiled by this point, but there was Rashford there, there's Garnacho there, Anthony as well. These are all players that are sort of shoot first, pass second players, where it seems like Mbeumo's like the perfect hybrid of the two, because I think for a long time his assists and goals were usually kind of neck and neck, weren't they? It was sort of 8 or 9 assists or 7 or 8 assists, 9 or 10 goals. Obviously this year the goals have exploded, but is he someone that United can expect to be looking to create for others as well as trying to get himself, 15, 20 goals a season?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You only need to look at the partnership that he's built with Yohan Wissa, also with Kevin Schade as well, to realise that this Brentford team, they don't rely on individuals. They rely on Mbeumo to a point, but they rely on Mbeumo because they know he can get the best out of others and vice versa. So yeah, this is a player who will provide goals, but he's also going to provide a bit of creativity. He's going to provide a moment deep into games where, you're looking to unlock a defence. Brentford made a good habit of scoring late goals last season, especially at home, and Mbeumo was a big part of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like United, so much over the last sort of 12 months in particular, whenever we've needed a goal or things have got a bit desperate or edgy, it's just give Bruno Fernandes the ball. And if he can't fix it, we lose. And that has been the case. And obviously, he's got, I think it was 19 goals, 19 assists Bruno got last season. He's done as much as anyone could possibly be expected to do. But when he's your only outlet for large portions of the season, you simply cannot, finish in the European places. I think that's literally impossible. bringing someone like Mbeumo in who you can sort of go, actually, if Bruno hasn't done it, then you can give it to Mbeumo, or they can link up together, like you said, these partnerships that they create and that he's created with Visser in particular. That's something I'm really looking forward to again if he signs. In terms of off the pitch a little bit then, because we've seen so much from Man United in the last few years of, reports of people being unprofessional. We've seen Ruben Amorim himself talking about changing the culture, people who are desperate to win, people who hate the idea of losing and sort of won't accept it. What is he like as a person and as a character off the pitch? Because this is the sort of thing that I can watch him against United or Arsenal or, Wolves, whoever. But what kind of guy is this person? What kind of man are Manchester United looking to bring in here?
So I think the first thing to say is, he is deeply competitive on the training pitch. There's multiple examples of him sort of, he misplaces a pass or a teammate misplaces a pass. He'll sort of let them know. But that needs to be caveated by the idea that Brentford employ, or at least they did under Frank, a no dickheads policy. So, players don't
We
get
need one of
very
them.
far if that sort of competitive nature is erring on the side of unwarranted, basically. So I think that's something that really, really stands out about him. I think he knows he's a good player. He knows he's a good player, but he's willing to learn. His goal scoring numbers of the reason they've exploded over the last season is because he's worked hard on that. His sort of natural ability that's had to be weaned out through coaching. And I think also his relationship with Wissa really helps. There was a nice sort of interview. Obviously, their relationship is quite well documented that they're really, really good mates on and off the pitch. And Mbeumo said that Wissa's sort of helped him become a little less hot-headed. Perhaps when he was younger, he came to Brentford at 19. He was a player who was losing his head a little bit, maybe going off at players on the training ground. His relationship with Wissa that's really, really helped him. And that also reflects on the pitch because he has become a lot more composed as the years have gone by in the Premier League. I think a big thing around Mbeumo in the early sort of years of Brentford being in the Premier League was he was clearly a talented player, but he wasn't perhaps making the most of the opportunities he was presenting for himself. It certainly was a sort of known thing that he'd hit the woodwork a lot. Because perhaps he just didn't have that sort of precision that he needed. And that precision that starts on the training pitch. That starts with his relationship with Wissa, and it starts with his willingness to learn as well.
I think it's a good point about sort of how he's grown. And I think that's one worry I have about letting someone like Alejandro Garnacho leave, for instance, because a lot of the things you mentioned there are criticisms that are sort of thrown at him of he's a little bit sort of rash at times, and maybe he sort of puts the ball wide or hits the post because he's either not taking the right chances or not taking them at the right time. And I always wonder and worry about letting someone go like Garnacho. But I think with Mbeumo, what I see when I watch him is that he's someone that does the right thing so often. It seems like he is someone that is almost kind of calculating in his head all the time of what's the best outcome, what's the highest chance shot I can have here, what's the highest chance pass I can have here. I think his crossing numbers is one of the highest output crossers in the Premier League. He's one of the best runners in the Premier League in terms of distance covered. And he's someone that obviously he overachieved on his XG quite substantially, but he's someone that is taking shots in better areas. Do you think that's something that he's added to his game then, this kind of almost calculated approach to how he plays? He gets compared to Saka and Salah a little bit, that they almost feel like, not watching a robot because I feel like that's almost derogatory, but you're watching like many equations taking place at once of what's the most efficient and effective thing I can do in this position. Is that something that shows across the season, or is that just my analysis from the few games that I've seen?
No, 100%. I think Brentford as a club, as a team, they're looking to minimise waste at any opportunity. This is a team that's operating on a very low wage budget, so they have to make it tell in those attacking areas. They have to be able to, make the most of every single opportunity they have. And Mbeumo's development is part of that. And he wouldn't have made it to be this main guy within the team if he couldn't have sort of shown that development.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really positive sign. Just in terms of something else about him, you watch him and you get to see the stuff that we don't. What's something about him, whether that's on or off the pitch, that as a United fan watching far fewer Brentford games than you, that I probably wouldn't know about him?
Yeah, of course. So I think it plays into this whole idea that, he's methodical. This is a piano player, a chess player. This is a guy who deeply intelligent, deeply competitive, and I think that really, really reflects in his game. This is a guy who's, as you say, he's thinking about every decision. He's thinking about how he can get better, and he's sort of constantly looking to improve. And I think all of these things like tie into a character who he wants the best for himself, and he knows how to get it, and he's prepared to work hard for it. And I think it makes him a really, really rounded prospect. This is a guy at 25 who he's ready for a move of this caliber.
Yeah.
It feels like the natural step up. No one at Brentford is begrudging him a move this summer, because at this time of his career, showing the development he's shown year on year, this feels like the right step for him.
Yeah. Just a bit of a negative question here, actually. Just thinking, you mentioned there about, with so many positives. If there was to be a negative, if there was to be, the thing that Brentford fans go, he's done that again. Is there a thing that you think, actually, keep an eye out for that because there's a little weakness in his game or something that he still needs to improve on? Is there anything that you'd say in that sort of category?
Yeah, it's a positive and a negative because he's showing signs of improvement, but I would say that he is perhaps a player who drifts in and out.
Okay.
He's a player who makes the most of big moments, and if you can find him, you can rely on him to create those big moments. But something that he's working on, I must say, but something he has been guilty of is perhaps being in and out of games. Brentford are a really, really hard running team, super energetic. And at times, if he's not in possession, you're not perhaps seeing the best of him. But I will obviously caveat that with there's been numerous sort of performances. I can think Nottingham Forest away, for example, where he hasn't been, he's not been on the score sheet, but what he is doing is he's quite a sturdy individual. Quite small, but quite sturdy, a little bit in the Hazard role. That's quite a, big comparison, but in
Yeah.
the sense that he can hold the ball up and bring others in, and that's something that he's really sort of developing on. So when I say he drifts in and out of games, that's something that's certainly improved on, but that might be something that, rears its head if he were to make the move.
Yeah, I think the Hazard comparisons one I've seen, we had Carl Anker from The Athletic on, and he was talking about the use of the buttocks in holding players off and controlling your position around the ball. So by the sound of it, that is something that he does quite a lot. Just on the Thomas Frank thing, because obviously that's the sort of elephant in the room with this. It feels like United had a free run at Mbeumo, or relatively free run, after he'd said he's up for joining Manchester United. That seems to be his decision. Then we saw over the last couple of weeks this sort of influx of Thomas Frank wants him at Tottenham, and Mbeumo wouldn't necessarily turn it down. I'm not expecting you to tell me, Mbeumo's exact thoughts on this, but do you think that Thomas Frank is genuinely trying to take him to Tottenham, or do you think this is more of we need a counterweight to this Man United story, and it sort of makes sense because why wouldn't it make sense?
There's of course a desire from Frank to bring Mbeumo to the club. Obviously, he's had a hand in his development. He knows him better than anyone else. So it's a natural fit, and it's a fit that the rumours have a bit of weight behind them. But what I will say is that it's widely reported that Mbeumo is a Man United fan. He's given his preference to United. United have obviously started negotiations and already put a bid in. The ball is in United's court. It's how they want to proceed with it. If they can be proactive, then I think they've already got Mbeumo say so that he wants to come to the club.
Yeah, that's big, that. I mean, realistically, as long as we're willing to get the fee in the ballpark Brentford are looking for, where Mbeumo wants to go, that should be the deciding factor, shouldn't it? Just finally, and obviously you've sort of implied this, but I do want to ask you directly: do you think he's ready for this step up? Not just in terms of, I say step up. I know Brentford finished above United this season, but pretty much every season for the last 150 years that hasn't been the case. But not just in terms of expectations of winning trophies, challenging for Europe, all that stuff. Again, he's already experienced some of that with Brentford. But just the scrutiny, it's a completely different world almost Man United to anyone. It's not even a dig at Brentford or anything like that. But you come to Man United, if you don't score for the first 7 games, there's 007 graphics on Sky Sports News. If people of rival fans are already looking for lookalikes, doing a dance at a wedding that people can use when he has a stinker. Like everything just kicks into action. If it doesn't work at Man United, it's harder than it not working almost anywhere else. As a person and as a player and his quality, do you think he's ready for that step up in scrutiny and attention?
I think he is ready. I think we've spoken about this, right? That this is a really, really competitive guy who he knows his ability, and I think he knows that he's ready for this move. And so, yeah, what I would say is obviously it's hard to predict. Man United don't have the best history. And so it's often hard to say 100% that players are ready for that pressure. But what I would say is that in terms of a character, in terms of someone who's willing to work hard, but knows his ability, but knows he's ready for the step, and Mbeumo does fit. He does fit that, yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's such a big thing as well. Like United trying to get the dressing room right, as well as obviously on the pitch is huge. But I think we've had a lot of talented players in the last 10 years, and almost none of them are still here because half the time they weren't the right personality, or they didn't gel, or they didn't, grow in the way that we hoped they would. Hopefully, the character is something that's really been taken into account. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, getting that insight on someone who literally watches, reports on, has the inside access to Brentford week in, week out. It's invaluable having you on. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. Been a pleasure.
Cheers. Make sure you check out Sam. I'll put his link to his social media and the Hounslow Herald in the description if you want to check more of him out. He also covers Fulham, QPR, Harlequins, other things as well. But thank you once again, Sam, for coming on. And thank you for joining us at home. This has been a deep dive on Bryan Mbeumo. We'll see you in a bit.